Plus de coûts, plus de...
More costs, more taxes, higher debt. Just more going on the credit card, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister is a typical Liberal. He doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit from $31 billion to $65 billion. With $27 billion in new spending this year alone. And now he's forcing Canadians to pay $3,400 per family to pay the interest on the debt. Is there any limit to the Liberal credit card? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there is no limit to opportunities and possibilities for Canada. The spring economic update is just the next step in our plan to make Canada stronger, more resilient, more independent. We are implementing half of our initiatives to strengthen affordability, to make life more affordable for Canadians. We are also enhancing and strengthening our fiscal position, which is the strongest in the G7.
Il vient de voler des lignes de...
He just stole Justin Trudeau's talking lines. But he doubled just Mr. Trudeau's deficit. This Prime Minister has given Canadians the worst food inflation in the G7. His costly credit card budget is making Canadians pay $60 billion on debt service charges, more than we spend on GST or on healthcare. So the government is spending more on bankers than it is on nurses and doctors. Why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I understand why the opposition leader seems obsessed with the former Prime Minister. He's obsessed with the past. This government is focusing on the future, though, the future of this great country. We have a plan to strengthen the second fastest economic growth in the G7, and we have the best fiscal position of the entire G7. We are building a strong Canada for all, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it's just that this Liberal Prime Minister has gone from writing Justin Trudeau's policies to plagiarizing his talking points. Actually, that's not fair to Justin Trudeau. This Liberal Prime Minister has done the impossible, and that is he has doubled the deficit that Trudeau left behind. More cost, more debt, more taxes, more on the national credit card, and more interest payments for Canadians. So once again, with Canadians spending $3,000 per family on interest for the debt, is there any limit on the Liberal credit card?
Yeah. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in the face of a tariff war, in the face of an actual war, this government has reduced the deficit by $11 billion. This government has reduced the level of debt across the entire forecast horizon. This government is on track to deliver $60 billion of savings for Canadians. This government's on track to reduce spending on consultants by 20%. This government will build Canada strong.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the deficit Justin Trudeau had provided for this year was $31 billion. Yesterday, the Liberal Prime Minister provided a deficit of $65 billion. 65 is bigger than 31. Yes. And if you read, I know I'll speak slowly for the Liberal mathematicians on the other side of the House, because as the Globe and Mail said, in the upside-down land of the Liberals, a spending spree is a spending cut. Blowing a windfall of billions of dollars is prudent, and failing to prepare for a fiscal storm is, well, just good.
Time's up. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Your time is up here. In many ways, it's up.
Mr. Speaker, I won't go there. I won't go there. Mr. Speaker, this government's focused on affordability. Half of the measures in the update are to make life more affordable Canadians. Reducing, and June 5th, look forward 12 million Canadians to getting a check to help with groceries and essential. Lower cost of gasoline. But we're building the country strong for all, including Canada's youth, the biggest investment in apprenticeships in our history.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
These Liberals are like the Bourbon dynasty. They learn nothing and they forget nothing. Over the last decade, they told us that if we racked up the credit card, that somehow it would grow the economy. What do we get? We've got the worst growth in the G7, the highest housing costs in the G7, the worst household debt in the G7, the worst investment per worker in the G7. And now it's deja vu all over again with the Prime Minister repeating exactly the same policies. More debt, more costs, more taxes. He's just another Liberal. Will this Prime Minister recognize that Canadians are paying for his mistakes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians will not forget that the member opposite voted against childcare, voted against pharmacare, voted against dental care, voted against the groceries and essentials benefit that Canadians are going to see $500 checks in a few weeks. Mr. Speaker, Canadians will see the second strongest growing economy in the G7. They would like to forget. Is my time up?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal Prime Minister has been wrong about every major economic issue of the last decade. He was wrong to push for bigger and broader carbon taxes. Wrong to say that we should leave 50% of our oil in the ground. Wrong to oppose the Northern Gateway Pipeline. Wrong to say COVID would lead to deflation. Wrong to say money printing would not raise the cost. Wrong to say that affordability is the best that it's been in a decade. He keeps getting it wrong, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, he repeated the same mistakes. When will he realize that the more he gets it wrong, the more the Canadian people have to pay?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, wrong on crypto, wrong on Brexit. I could go on. But you know what this government is right on? You know what this government is right on? It's about cooperative federalism. It is working with the great province of Alberta to make sure that Canadian energy powers the world. It's about ensuring our competitiveness. It's about working with the province of Ontario, a premier that picks up my phone call and works with us to put Darlington new nuclear into power. It is about building Canada strong for all.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, these past few days, the Prime Minister claimed that 85% of Canadian exports to the U.S. were protected under CUSMA and that tariffs that are applied to Canada are among the lowest that the U.S. has on anyone. But actually, it turns out that they are among the highest of all tariffs applied to any country in the world, especially as of April 6th. There are no measures to address this in yesterday's economic update document. Will the Prime Minister fix this and help businesses? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question and for his interest in this situation. The government is currently working on measures to help workers and businesses in the steel, aluminum, copper, and derivative product industries, and we will announce those measures in the coming days.
Député de Belleuil-Chambly.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, that sounds like a good news, but we need to be careful because on April 6th, the United States changed how they calculate tariffs. I asked the Prime Minister whether he would take action radio silence. Then I asked him again the following week, and he told me that there would be measures to support businesses in the economic update. There were no such measures. So can I believe him this time? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's always a good idea to believe what the Prime Minister of Canada says. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we lived through 10 years of Justin Trudeau. So, what I deeply hope is for the Prime Minister to take the hand I extended to him in a press conference earlier today. Setting aside partisanship or putting on a show at Parliament, we need to focus on this extreme distress of businesses. We want these businesses who are hit hard by American tariffs to receive significant immediate relief. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, myself and the Minister of Industry and our other colleagues, we guarantee Canadian businesses and workers who are impacted by new American threats and new tariff calculations, we guarantee them that the action we will take to help them will be enough, more than enough, and it will be swift.
This Prime Minister is just another costly Liberal. He gave himself a gold medal for the highest deficit outside of COVID in Canadian history in his November budget. Yesterday, he gave himself a silver medal for having the second highest with his credit card budget. He spends more tax dollars for the interest on his debt than what goes to provinces in healthcare transfers. Why is this Liberal Prime Minister's priorities always to make bankers, bondholders, and Brookfield richer?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, I have great news for skilled workers all across this country and everybody who wants to join the skilled trades. A $6 billion investment in getting people into the trades, helping apprentices right now finish their training with up to $16,000 in support, and making sure employers have the support to hire their workers. In fact, Robert Kucherin from the Canadian Building Trades Union says it's a strong statement of support and respect for Canada's skilled trades workers. I guess I'll vote against those workers too, eh?
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
For a party that gave Canadians the second highest unemployment in the entire G7, it's hard to believe those trades will actually have a job after they graduate. This credit card budget was more debt, more costs, more spending, more taxes, all by the same old Liberals. Now Canadians have the highest food inflation, second highest unemployment, highest consumer debt, and housing cost in the entire G7. Will this costly Liberal Prime Minister just finally admit he's a worse money manager than Justin Trudeau was?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, this is what Sean Strickland said. He's the Executive Director of the Canadian Building Trades Union. He said, you know what, our members work hard, often far from home, to build Canada, but today's measures will be felt at kitchen tables across the country. And he said that this announcement demonstrates a strong commitment to helping Canada building trades meet the moment by investing in increased capacity for training, apprentice supports, support for youth. Mr. Speaker, no matter what idea and no matter who endorses it, they vote against it. Shame on them.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
These same old costly Liberals have continued their decade of credit card budgeting. More costs, more debt, more taxes, more of the same. In fact, this costly Liberal Prime Minister is now doubling the Trudeau deficit. He's literally doubling down on the failures of the past. Failures that have delivered the worst housing, worse food inflation, and worse economic growth in the G7. When will this Liberal Prime Minister end his costly credit card budgeting so Canadians can afford to put food on the table and keep a roof over their head?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the Conservatives may be mired in the last decade or two of failure. This government is focused on the future and delivering today. Mr. Speaker, this spring this spring update, Mr. Speaker, has an incredible opportunity for young Canadians. Up to 100,000 Canadians will have access to training and support to build the affordable homes, the community infrastructure that this country needs to build Canada strong. Thank you.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, I understand why that minister wouldn't want to talk about the past, given his horrendous record on housing in the city of Vancouver. Mr. Speaker, it's the same old story with these same old Liberals. Even Liberal-friendly columnists like Andrew Coyne have finally taken notice, saying Canada's new government is no more interested in arresting our economic decline than Canada's old government. Canadians are maxed out. They can't afford the same reckless Liberal policies of the last decade. So why have the Liberals doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit, doubled down on the costly credit card budgeting, and forced Canadians to pay more for gas, groceries, and housing?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Why don't you answer your...
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the question. Once again, Conservatives attacking former mayors like they attack current mayors. They have no respect for leaders of our cities and towns, leaders of our provinces and territories, leaders of our Indigenous communities. Zero respect. That's right. My first 7 years as a mayor in Vancouver, you know how much support we had from the Harper Conservative government? Zero. This government is focused on partnering with cities and towns, Indigenous communities, and delivering the affordable housing we need.
The honourable member for Newtecumseh Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, after 11 years of Liberal deficits, Canadians are screaming, make it stop. But this banker Prime Minister isn't listening. He said they just got started as they pile on another $37 billion in spending and weaken our economy even more. This budget promises more costs, more taxes, more debt, and more inflation for hard-working Canadians who are already maxed out. Why are Canadians paying the price for this Liberal government's out-of-control spending?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
I have a lot of respect for that member, but look it. Let's hear. We are optimistic about the future of our country, Mr. Speaker. But let's hear from workers, okay? Let's hear from workers. Let's hear from Russ Suchuk from the IBEW. This economic statement will supercharge the skilled trades across Canada to help build and assist the much-needed infrastructure and electrification of our country. It will transform apprenticeships in today's technology, safety and training, meeting the moment to supply a workforce for major projects from coast to coast to coast. That's how you build a Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newtecumseh Gwillimbury.
Well, strap in, Mr. Speaker, because Canadians are now paying $59 billion in interest on the debt. That money isn't going towards hospitals, highways, or homes. It's contributing to the highest household debt, most unaffordable housing, and second worst productivity and unemployment in the entire G7. These Liberals are so far behind they think they're in first place. Will the Prime Minister admit that his costly credit card budget is rewarding bankers and lenders while making life harder for everyone else?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, this new government is fiscally responsible, reducing the deficit by $11 billion. But, Mr. Speaker, there hasn't been a single question today about workers. Let's hear from the workers. Let's hear from Mark Arsenault, the business manager for the building trades in Ontario, Mr. Speaker. The federal spring economic statement demonstrates that the government is firmly committed to strengthen the skilled trades workforce at a time of economic certainty. The significant expansion of union training innovation program, including bricks and mortar investments for the red sealed trades, alongside enhanced incentive and completion grants for improved tracking and a practical approach in supporting apprentices. Mr. Speaker, that's how you build Canada strong for all.
The honourable member for Terranova the Peninsula.
Mr. Speaker, bankers make their money by having their clients enslaved to death, and this banker Prime Minister is no different. He's just another costly Liberal. They even said the quiet part out loud. On their graph, they showed that Canada's deficit to GDP ratio begins to skyrocket after this Prime Minister was appointed. Canadians now spend more money servicing the interest on Canada's credit card than all of our federal health care payments. Will this Liberal government commit to a real conservative fiscal plan that spends less on bankers and more on doctors?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the member opposite, Conservative member from Newfoundland and Labrador, reads his prepared notes and likes his bit of theatre, the people of Newfoundland and Labrador are interested in the nearly $1 billion investment in small craft harbors. And that's just the beginning. It's time this member listens to his constituents and puts the work first. The theatrics can come in the school play.
L'honorable député de Jean.
The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, in its economic update, Ottawa is investing $6 billion in workforce training for the construction industry. The problem, though, is that worker training falls under Quebec's jurisdiction. The Liberals say they'd like to come to an agreement, but there's already been an agreement for 30 years. For 30 years, Ottawa has recognized that it is Quebec that determines the plans and priorities of the labour market within its province. For 30 years, Quebec has been designing, planning, delivering, and evaluating tailored employment and training measures and services. In short, here's the question: will the government immediately transfer Quebec's share to Quebec unconditionally?
Merci beaucoup,
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for his question. We are investing in the labour force, in skilled trades, because there are needs. There are needs in Quebec. In fact, Quebec's construction industry will need 80,000 workers over the next 5 years. We will, of course, work in a way that respects Quebec's jurisdiction. We have been respecting their jurisdiction since our original agreement on labour force jurisdiction, and I look forward to working with Minister Poulin so that we can improve things for Quebec as quickly as possible. The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the very last thing we need is a squabble that Ottawa starts. As I said earlier, workforce training has been under Quebec's jurisdiction for 30 years. Quebec decides what its labour market needs and how to meet those needs. Quebec has jurisdiction over that. Ottawa's role is to provide the money for that. Quebec has the know-how. We don't need a government that doesn't have jurisdiction over this to meddle with it. As we all know, Ottawa is the champion of making the labour market more Anglophone. So when will Quebec receive its fair share of the funds with no strings attached? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. April 29th is a historic day. It's historic because it's the first time I've heard the Bloc Québécois say that the last thing they want is a Quebec-Ottawa squabble, because that's all I've ever seen over the past 10 years is them looking to pick fights. We are going to deliver for Quebec. We're going to deliver for the labour force. We've promised to do so, and that's exactly what we will do. The Honourable Member for Richemont-Arthabasca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is trying to get us to believe that he's creating a sovereign wealth fund. That is not true. A sovereign wealth fund is built on years of surpluses, budget surpluses, and developing our natural resources. You don't build a sovereign wealth fund by putting $25 billion on Canadians' credit cards. The Liberals have just run up a record deficit, record with the exception of COVID years. A record deficit, and there's no evidence of any sound management of public finances. How can the Liberals shamelessly run up a tab on future generations' credit card like this? The Honourable Government House Leader. All right, let's talk about future generations. My colleague just said that it's important to train the labour force. We have labour force needs in Quebec and across Canada. Mr. Speaker, we need to invest in ourselves, in major projects, in infrastructure. We will allow Canadians to benefit from building a better Canada. There will be better job opportunities for young people. There will be better job opportunities in construction-related jobs. We will benefit from our labor force and our investments. That's what building Canada means.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Labor training? Well, Quebec wasn't even aware of this new program before it was announced yesterday. Mr. Speaker, a $37 billion increase in spending is not a spending cut. That is what the Globe and Mail said just this morning. They said, in the Liberals' upside-down universe, a spending spree is a spending cut, and squandering billions of unbudgeted dollars is fiscal prudence. Mr. Speaker, I hope you're sitting down because you're in for a shock here. By 2031, the Liberals will have added $321 billion in debt on the backs of our children and grandchildren. How can the Liberals spend so recklessly when Canadians are struggling to make ends meet? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Canadian, Mr. Speaker, but you are Canadian, of course. What's really disheartening is this member and the members who surround him and his party. On this side of the House, we are enabling young people to have access to great jobs. We're helping young people have affordable homes. We are giving young people back the dream of a better future, economically speaking, in Quebec and in Canada. That's what we are doing here on this side of the House. We are soundly managing our finances. The honourable member for Bellechasse et Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are continuing their decade-long streak of costly credit card budgets. This Prime Minister has doubled the deficit left by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Who could have even believed this upside-down universe where this government's spending spree is being portrayed as prudence? The Liberals are spending more, but Canadians are getting less. When will this Prime Minister put an end to his costly budget so that Canadians can make ends meet? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are building a strong economy, and the data backs that up. We have the second fastest economic growth in the G7. We also have the strongest economic situation in the G7. What are we doing? We're taking action to help workers and businesses impacted by the tariff war. We're building a sovereign wealth fund for economic nationalism. That's exactly what Quebec did in the 60s when we decided to be masters of our own province. This is our vision. It shows that we can defend ourselves and create prosperity in Canada.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Saint-Jean-Lévis. Well, the way they've chosen to do this is not right. The Prime Minister is continuing the same boring policies as his predecessor. Economists are sounding the alarm. Without strong measures to boost productivity, the debt-to-GDP ratio will rise to a breaking point, Mr. Speaker. And we're already experiencing the worst food inflation in the G7. Why are the Liberals stubbornly sticking to this path that forces Canadians to pay more for gas, groceries and housing when nothing's changed in the past 10 years? The Honourable Minister of Industry. I think my Conservative colleagues are not understanding the urgency for the Canadian economy. Well, they would just look at this trade war and twiddle their thumbs. And what we're doing is lowering operational expenses for the government to spend less on one end, and at the same time we're investing in everything that is capital expenditures. So everything is working, and the IMF has confirmed this, and we're going to continue to create prosperity in our country. The honourable member for Montmorency Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, the more things change, the more things stay the same. These Liberals have doubled the deficit in 1 year. The former Prime Minister, a drama teacher, was talking about a $35 billion deficit. Now with this economic savvy Prime Minister, the deficit is nearly $65 billion. It's more tax and more on Canadians' credit cards and more debt. The cost of servicing this debt alone is higher than the total amount of healthcare transfers for all provinces. Why is it with these Liberals, there's always more spending, more tax, and more risks with the money of Canadians? The Honourable Secretary of State. Mr. Speaker, in the economic update from yesterday, we've proposed to invest more than $6 million to hire skilled young people. These are new workers that will help us to build a strong Canada and implement strong projects. We're investing in our young people in our country, and I hope the members across the way will support this plan that was presented yesterday.
The honourable member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is making generational investments in major infrastructure projects that will support Canada's economic future. Within 8 years, Canada will need more than 1.4 million additional workers. Listen to that noise. So disrespectful to Canadians. Canada needs more gold.
I know it's tempting.
I know.
Let's set a new tone. Let's set a new tone. The honourable member may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know why they're so afraid of good news. Because our government is making generational investments in major infrastructure projects that will support Canada's economic future. Within 8 years, Canada will need more than 1.4 million additional workers in the trades to build these projects. Canada needs more than 20,000 trades.
I don't see any minister standing. I don't know if the minister heard the question, but I have a feeling she knows the answer.
Mr. Speaker, this is good news for the skilled trades. The only question we have is, are they going to vote against these workers, Mr. Speaker? Will the Conservatives vote against Canadian workers?
Okay. The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
The upside-down land of Liberals, a spending spree is a spending cut. Blowing a windfall of billions of dollars is prudent, and failing to prepare for a fiscal storm is, well, just good fiscal management. That's the scathing review from the Globe and Mail editorial board, Mr. Speaker, because yesterday the Liberals promised Canadians they would continue their decade of massive deficit spending, which means rising cost of living for Canadians will also continue with no end in sight. So when will this Liberal Prime Minister finally show some responsibility, some fiscal restraint so that Canadians can afford to live?
The Honourable Minister for Northern Arctic Affairs.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, you know what Manitobans want, especially young people? They want a job. They want opportunity. Right. And that's what this government is delivering. The spring budget delivers real momentum for Manitobans. We're seeing infrastructure investments that keep the province moving in the right direction, from transportation upgrades to community facilities. We're expanding real Red Seal training. Mr. Speaker, the member opposite continues to deny what we're delivering on. They need to get on side that we're delivering for affordability.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
The Liberals can dress this up however they like, but there is a glaring omission in the fiscal update, and it's urgency. They have no urgency in resolving the U.S. tariff dispute that's costing thousands of the Canadian manufacturing jobs. And what's worse, according to the Financial Times, Canada's leading industry groups say the Prime Minister's efforts to cut red tape is floundering, costing the country billions more in trade losses than Donald Trump's tariffs. But Liberals have no urgency to resolve that issue either, despite it being 100% in their control. So rather than massive deficits, why don't they cut red tape so our workers and industries can survive?
Way to go. The Honourable Minister.
Great job, Dancho.
Mr. Speaker, we're investing so Manitobans can step into good jobs. What is she not seeing here? We're strengthening Manitoba aerospace sector. We're advancing the Economic Wealth Fund. We're investing $6 billion in the trades so that young people could get jobs. The member opposite continues to downplay this work, and these measures are directly supporting Manitobans.
That's right.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians were promised change after a decade of costly Liberal government under Justin Trudeau. Yesterday, they didn't get change, they got more of the same, asking for every Canadian household to shoulder roughly $3,400 of new debt from a Prime Minister who said he would be different. This costly credit card budget delivers more debt, more costs, more taxes, doubling the deficit while life gets more expensive. So which promise was false? The promise of change or the claim that doubling the deficit would somehow make Canadians better off?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative and BC ridings are telling me this week that our new government is delivering the things that they need. We're bringing major projects like LNG 2 and Red Crisp Mine, which are going to invest in our natural resources and build BC's economy. We're delivering the Team Canada Strong program, which is going to recruit, train, and hire over 80,000 new skilled workers. This means jobs for British Columbians, Mr. Speaker. That's good news.
The honourable member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
The only thing this government delivers, Mr. Speaker, is more talking points, recycled. So even the Globe and Mail says that in this upside-down Liberal world, quote, a spending increase of $26.8 billion is not a spending cut, end quote. And that for every $100 in new revenue, the government spends 97% of it. So will the government admit this costly credit card budget proves nothing has changed, or are Canadians now supposed to believe that doubling the deficit is fiscal responsibility?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I had a conversation with the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade this week, and you know what we were talking about? We were talking about the need for skilled workers in British Columbia. Right. Yesterday's spring economic update, we announced that we're investing in the recruiting, training, and hiring of skilled trades with more than 80,000 skilled workers. And we're going to grow the Canadian economy. We're going to invest in those projects. We're doing what BC needs.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, those apprentices desperately need projects to go forward that they can work on. Now, Canada faces an unemployment crisis most severe among youth, yet this Liberal costly credit card budget plans further increases to EI premiums. Increasing the tax on jobs now will make it harder for businesses to create jobs and make the jobs crisis even worse. Why are Liberals paying for their costly credit card budget with further tax increases on jobs?
Change. The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, they only read half the newspaper, obviously. If they would have read the other half, they would have seen the CEO of Shell say it's never been as attractive a time to invest in the energy sector in this country. They would have said they're excited about the development of LNG in this country. They're excited about the jobs that are going to be created. They should read the rest of the paper, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not at all surprised to hear that minister spends a lot of time talking to CEOs. But on page 122 of their fiscal update, it's clear that they are increasing the tax on jobs at a time when we already have a massive youth unemployment crisis. This credit card budget proposes to squeeze small businesses and workers even more at the same time as these Liberals are voting against allowing student grants to go to those at vocational institutions. They're attacking young people, attacking jobs. Mr. Speaker, when will it end?
The Honourable Minister.
Instead of reading the paper, you should go online and see that we actually cut CPP deductions from paychecks. We're making it cheaper for people to work. We're making it more affordable for people. And we're adding 100,000 new Red Seal jobs. Read the paper. Read all the paper, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Leduc, Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, Canada had a balanced budget and the richest middle class in the world. Coming out of a global economic meltdown, Canada's federal debt stood at $616 billion. Yesterday, we found out that after a decade of liberal economic experiments funded on the national credit card, our debt this fiscal year will hit $1.4 trillion. The Liberals are trading away Canadians' future prosperity to fund this tiresome daily Liberal QP routine of riffing off ever-increasing lists of things they're charging to the national credit card. Is there someone over there with the courage to stand up and say, enough is enough?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that Canada has one of the strongest positions fiscally in the G7, and in addition to maintaining and growing that position, we are also delivering for Canadians. $6 billion investing in the skilled trades, more than $700 million for athletics in this country from playground to podium. Mr. Speaker, building Canada's homes by providing low-cost financing and ensuring that there's a groceries and essentials benefits. We ask the Conservatives rationally to get...
The Honourable Member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
In a mythical Liberal world, budgets balance themselves. In the current Prime Minister's theoretical world, the national credit card has no limit and the bill never comes due. But we live in the real world where this Liberal government's addiction to borrowing has real consequences. This Prime Minister is now spending more on interest than on the Canada Health transfer. According to his own economic update, this is quite astonishing, Mr. Speaker, in 2030, the entire deficit will go to paying interest on debt the Liberals have added since being elected. In this new world, Liberal debt becomes self-generating. When will this experiment end?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7, and at the same time, in direct response to my colleague's question, we have reduced the deficit by $11 billion as announced yesterday. And one thing that the Conservatives have failed to do is to vote for Canadians, vote for dental care, vote for pharmacare, vote for the groceries and essentials benefit, vote for housing, vote for supporting school food lunch programs on a permanent basis. I ask them, get over.
The Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how much lipstick they put on this budget, a pig is still a pig. Liberals' costly credit...
I mean, you know, I think, you know, something is unparliamentary if it creates disorder. I think that kind of language is, you know, has a tendency to create disorder. Perhaps the member could use other language.
The Liberals' costly credit card budget is more of the same, Mr. Speaker. More debt, more spending, more taxes, and higher inflation. The Prime Minister has doubled previous annual deficits. He had still added $54 billion in new spending, with $59 billion now costing Canadians in credit card or in debt interest charges to cover it. His $25 billion sovereign debt fund is just another deception. When will the Prime Minister set aside his illusions and his deficit and bring his deficit under control so Canadians can afford to live?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I know it's a lot to ask, but if the Conservatives could finally give up their infatuation with our former Prime Minister and just face reality for once. Canada is strong and resilient and only getting more so under this government's leadership. The evidence is in the spring economic update, $11 billion less in a deficit. The fiscal track with the declining deficit to GDP. Operating expenses being managed responsibly. Canada has triple the job creation, double the foreign direct investment per capita than U.S. counterparts, the most competitive tax rate in the G7, and the strongest fiscal position.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, over the past year, Canadians have had to adapt to a rapidly changing world, a world that is more unpredictable, more complex, more unstable, and much more expensive. Last fall, on this side of the House, we responded to these changes with a solid budget for 2025, a plan that aimed at building a stronger, more resilient Canadian economy, thus reducing costs for Canadians. Yesterday's economic update is the next step in this plan to truly continue the work. Could the Minister of Government Transformation explain how this update builds on progress already made? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Bourassa for his question. Yesterday, the Finance Minister presented a plan for a strong Canada, and it involves the grocery benefit, which will help 12 million Canadians, and they'll receive their first payment on June 5th. It's involving skilled trades support and more than 100 million to support 60,000 jobs across the country. We have a prudent and responsible plan. Thank you.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
This Liberal Prime Minister's costly budget is going to add another $37 billion in new debt this year, continuing his Liberal predecessor's tradition of borrowing and spending. What's worse is that interest alone on the national debt will be an additional $59 billion this year, which is $3,400 for every Canadian who's already struggling with the rising prices of gas and groceries and housing. This Prime Minister has the opportunity to show he's not just another Liberal. Will he instead break from type and offer relief and affordability for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, while the former Prime Minister lives rent-free in their heads, this Prime Minister is focused on an economy for all Canadians. That's why yesterday's spring economic update, we announced
The member may continue.
Mr. Speaker, the former Prime Minister lives rent-free in all their heads. This Prime Minister is focused on building an economy for everyone. Yesterday's spring economic update, we announced bold changes to the disability tax credit so more Canadians with disabilities can get the support they need. We also reinvested in a community volunteer income tax program, which will help. It's run by volunteers. It does taxes for our most vulnerable, Mr. Speaker. Over 1 million Canadians, 17% of them haven't filed for.
Okay, the honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
The reality is that with this Liberal Prime Minister, and just like his Liberal predecessor, Canadians are struggling now more than ever. Groceries, gas, homes have never been more expensive. And don't take my word for it. The Globe and Mail said in a scathing review, quote, Canada's new government is no more interested in arresting our economic decline than Canada's old government, end quote. We should be the richest. We should be the most affordable country on earth. But instead, they're borrowing today and making Canadians of future generations pay it back. Why won't they deliver relief?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, these guys will find any excuse to talk down Canada, talk down investing in Canada, even in a trade war. Our credit rating is the highest in the world. We've just lowered the deficit by $11.5 billion, and we're using that money to invest in Canadians. We are making the largest investments in the skilled trades in our history. 100,000 jobs in the skilled trades. They should support it. Look, our plan is simple, and I'll put it simply. Build in Canada, buy in Canada, believe in Canada. Let's go.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Liberals claimed in their latest update they would show discipline. Instead, Canadians got more debt, more spending, more of the same. The deficit's now projected to be double Trudeau's. And as debt rises, taxpayers pay the price. Public debt charges are projected to be more than $54 billion this year, rising to $81 billion in 5 years. That's money that can't go to tax relief, it can't go to housing, and it can't go to health care. It's no wonder, Mr. Speaker, that the Globe and Mail said it's a bit rich for the finance minister to be claiming fiscal responsibility. So when will this Liberal Prime Minister end his costly budgeting so Canadians can afford to live?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, you know what is a bit rich is the fact that the Conservatives are not defending our auto workers. And this spring economic update is all about our auto strategy and supporting our 5,000 auto workers, including those working in the parts sector of the auto sector. And you know what? Good news today. GM just announced in St. Catharines more than $690 million of investments in the next generation. This is our plan working, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Richmond East, Steveston.
Mr. Speaker, respecting the spirit of truth and reconciliation, Richmond residents in my hometown are seeking clarity following last summer's Cowichan decision and recent federal agreements with First Nations in British Columbia. To dispel this misinformation, it's important that we continue to provide clear, factual information and constructive leadership as Canada moves forward with the important work of advancing reconciliation. Can the Prime Minister outline the government's position and explain how the government is working collaboratively to uphold reconciliation while protecting private property rights for residents and businesses?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague,
Important question that has been a subject of debate, so it's very important to hear the answer. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague for this important question. Private property rights are fundamental, and this government, indeed this House, will always protect them. This government fundamentally disagrees with the BC Supreme Court's decision on Cowichan. We immediately appealed that decision alongside the government of BC, the City of Richmond, and other First Nations. We will always advance viable legal arguments to protect private property. Federal agreements, including agreements about Aboriginal title, have always and will always protect private property. No modern treaty, negotiated agreement, or federal approach.
The Honourable Member for Flamborough-Glanbrook Branch North.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday's statement proved nothing has changed. More debt, more costs, more spending, more taxes, more of the same. The worst housing costs, worst growth, and worst food inflation in the G7. As the Globe and Mail said, this new government has no interest in arresting our economic decline. Why have the Liberals doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit, doubled down on costly credit card budgeting, forcing Canadians to pay more for gas, groceries, and housing?
Government House Leader.
Well, as we conclude this question period with about 32 identical questions from the Conservative Party straight off of the Leader of the Opposition's desk, let's conclude it this way. Every time we propose what that member purports to want, lower costs, lower prices, higher salaries, new dental care, new social programs, every single support, they're against it, Mr. Speaker. We're for it. We're going to go back and do the work of building Canada strong. They're going to go write a new question for tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government's decision to end the Canadian Corps of Commissioners' preferential contracting threatens jobs for veterans who rely on it for stable work after service, while potentially shifting contracts to for-profit firms. For decades, the Commissioners have supported their transition from serving our nation in the Canadian Armed Forces or the RCMP with dignity. Why is the Minister of Veterans Affairs moving ahead without any consultation with the Commissioners? And will she instead reverse these arbitrary procurement changes before veterans pay the price?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, government policies must evolve as the goals they speak to change. In 1945, the first right of refusal was designed to respond to the needs of soldiers returning from war. Today, this policy no longer meets the needs of veterans. Today, the average age of a releasing veteran is 34. They have a range of transferable hard and soft skills. These skills are in demand in the Canadian economy. Mr. Speaker, Guard Services will continue to be one option for veterans, and I will continue to advance all options for veterans.
I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Brian Jean, Minister of Energy and Minerals, and the Honourable Nathan Newdorf, Minister of Affordability and Utilities, both for the province of Alberta. I would also draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the finalists of the 2026 Shaughnessy Cohen Prize for Political Writing: Don Gilmore, Maggie Helwig, Brian Stewart, Ira Wells, and Karen Wells. Westlock has appointed